A very good day to you. I hope you have yourself an amazing day. It's yet another beautiful Tuesday night. It's 19:03 East African time on the 18th of June 2024. And I'm here again to tell you about each and everything that was making the headlines all over Africa on the Black Hot Fire updates, keeping you on the know and letting you know what was really making headlines in all the parts of Africa. Our main focus today, of course, is Kenya, where there was protests for the whole of today. Nairobi CBD was impassable. I'm going to be telling you what happened and why this is such an interesting part, because it's for the first, it started as a joke, went to a hashtag, from a hashtag, went to a trend, from a trend, went to the ground. And what the leaders ignored ended up being one of the very first citizen organized protests we ever seen in Kenya. I don't remember us having any other citizen organized protest. We've had protests before, but most of the protests that we've had, the demonstrations, the picketing that we've had before, were politically instigated. It's the opposition calling for the protest. It's always a certain politician calling for the. But today it was nothing to do with any politician. It was non-partisan. It was just Kenyans fed up. And out of that, more than 200 Kenyans have been arrested. Although the protests were really peaceful, pretty peaceful, the 200 Kenyans were arrested, and a lot others tear gassed over the protests. What they were protesting against was the new tax hikes that have been captured in the finance bill. But at least you can already start seeing changes, because the first thing that they did in the morning was they did away with some of the tax clauses. However, they thought that if they release a press statement in the morning talking about how they have listened and have removed some tax clauses, such as, I'm going to be telling you about some of the tax clauses that they have removed. One of them is the car tax. The other one is the eco tax. The other one is the tax on edible oil. They thought that if they massage it a little bit and do away with a few clauses here and there, Kenyans are going to buy the lie, but nobody bought it. And they have decided that they are going to demonstrate until the whole finance bill in its entirety is scrapped, not some sections of it getting removed, but the whole finance bill that I can assure you is an IMF document has been removed. So that was what Nairobi was like today. Let me show you a video of what Nairobi looked like today. Kenyans, and especially the Gen Z, it was majorly the Gen Z. It was majorly young people who took to the streets to protest this. And let me show you what Nairobi was like today. So you can tell they were pretty peaceful, non-violent protests that did not require the police tear gassing or trying to, because the police were 100% trying to provoke the people into violence, but the people did not. The protests were very peaceful. There was no violence at all. There was no destruction of property, but did not deter the police from arresting the peaceful protesters. 200 of them were arrested. Others were tear gassed and others were injured. But at least the Kenyans made their voices known. We made their voices heard and their opinions known. I think what scared the government, and rightly so, is one, they underestimated the power of the people. Why? Because it's not really the first time that we've had online activism. And I remember one of the main government advisors, his name is Ndi, mentioning on his social media account, he tweeted and said that digital activism is just wanking. That is what he said. Why? Because the government really did not expect. They knew that there was people were discontented with. There was that discontent with the finance bill. They knew that this was not making the people happy. Nobody was pleased. It was controversial, but they expected the noise to die online like it always does. As I told you, it's actually the first time where a hashtag has been translated into the ground. Where people have actually gone ahead and taken the activism out of social media to actually, the hashtag was Occupy Parliament. The goal was to occupy Parliament. That was the main aim today. By occupying Parliament, they meant they are going to Parliament and they are going to enter there and have a chat with those MPs. So it's actually the very first time that we've had such an occurrence where the government did underestimate the power of the people. When I say that, that's for a fact, because we even had a senior government official talking about digital activism is just wanking. They expected it to end there. That was not the case, though. Did not end there, and it was ended up being one of the best moments we've seen in Kenya so far. And it was led by Kenyan Gen Z. Majorly, it was very young people, below 30, majority of them. I'm going to share more videos and you're going to see. So the the protests were under the tag Occupy Parliament. They begin today early morning, and before, of course, with the Kenyan police, before long, it was running battles as protesters were pouring in the streets trying to enter the Parliament building. So we woke up to a warning from the Nairobi Regional Police Commander, Adamson Bungei, who said that the gatherings were outlawed. However, what happened was Kenyans shared his number, and of course, he has been receiving a fair share of phone calls and SMSs of Kenyans trying to tell him what they think about him. And we saw one Kenyan in the protest, I don't know if I'm going to find that video, telling the police, you probably live worse lives than we do. You probably suffering more than we do. It's you who we are fighting for, and you are fighting us. It's you we are fighting for. It's not like the taxes are going to spare you with your small salary. But it's hard for them to understand that they think that man was trying to explain to the police, you're not the enemy, we're not here for you. We're actually here to fight for you. Whether he understood, I doubt, but that was a Kenyan making valid points. So the protest was not even an event that had been planned for long. It was something that came out of social media, and in a matter of days. So it started with Find My MP, and then after Find My MP, Kenyans sharing the numbers, they realized, no, that is not gonna work. We actually need to. These people are actually telling us we are just wanking. Digital activism is wanking. We need to get to them. And then another Kenyan coming up with a poster, another one sharing it, others protesting. And as one journalist from Royal Media Services said, that as a protest of urgency, it was the results were big. Nobody expected it to be like that. Not even the government. That is why they did not even. Most of the police were sent in the evening, around evening. That was when they realized, oh, this thing is actually serious, and they now are rushing to send police there. So this is how Nairobi looked like in graphics, not in words.
In the 2024 finance bill. Now, before we get to what has changed, these are live pictures we're seeing on our screen right now. Pictures from the Nairobi CBD. Earlier on, we spoke to our reporter, David Mudoka, and he was painting a picture of what we're seeing, running battles between Kenyans, specifically those who had gone out to protest the finance bill 2024 and of course, the police. It's good to note that there was a movement dubbed Occupy Parliament that made good their promise to stage a sit-in in Parliament. But however, that particular protest was outlawed. As you can see, there are live pictures from specifically Kimathi Street. Now, we did hear from the Nairobi police boss, that is Adamson Bungei, and he did say that they had outlawed this particular, movement and the protest, saying they had fallen short of the requirements that were supposed to be met. But it's good to note that earlier on, the leader of this movement, that is the Occupy Parliament, had told the public that the movement had complied with all the requirements and they expected that the police protection during the sit-in. However, that is not the situation. As you can see there, live pictures from Kimathi Street. Maybe we can listen in a bit before we come back and continue updating you. As you can see there, protesters being, taken into the police truck. All right, those are live pictures from Kimathi Street. As you can see there, police and the protesters engaging in running battles. It's good to note that how are we here as a country? How did we get to this particular, point? It is because of the Finance Bill 2024 that Kenyans have vowed to reject because of the proposals that had been put in place. That is the tax proposals from the proposed 16% on bread that has been removed now to the issue of the 2.5% on owning a car, that is a yearly tax, to the issues of the eco levy that was supposed to affect the manufacturing industry, not forgetting issues such as diapers and sanitary towels. All these issues have gotten Kenyans where they are. Remember, Kenyans are saying that these proposed tax measures are punitive and they will only make their lives harder than they already are. So we continue monitoring the situation.
So that was how Nairobi looked like today, with protests all over. And what this led to was some of the punitive taxes being repealed, some of the clauses in the new finance bill being dropped. But as I said, that was not enough. They said they are going to continue until the whole finance bill in its entirety is dropped. So what are some of the clauses, the punitive taxes that were dropped by the MPs after these protests? One of them was the vehicle tax. There was a motor vehicle tax that was going to, every motor vehicle in Kenya was going to pay a certain amount of money, 2.5% of the motor vehicle value to be specific. So that means if you have a vehicle worth 1 million Kenya shillings, then you need to pay 2.5% of 1 million every year. If you have a car that costs you that you bought with 100,000 USD, you have to pay 2.5% of that every year. So that was scrapped. VAT on bread was also scrapped. They had introduced a 16% value added tax on bread. They were actually looking for things that are consumed more and taxing them, because they know Kenyans consume bread a lot. So they had taxed bread. They added a 16% tax on bread, which would have seen the cost of bread rise. However, that was done with. And another tax that they did with from just one day of protest. Imagine if we do it for a month. There was another thing, that there was a turnover that farmers were supposed to pay. So that was farmers with a turnover of less than 1 million. Farmers with a turnover of were supposed to pay a certain amount of turnover for the year. Whatever amount of money you make, whatever amount of sales you make, you're supposed to do a turnover to the government. That is after you've paid tax in your bread, you've already paid for tax you've already filed your taxes. Apart from that, from whatever amount you've made as a farmer, you still need a turnover. So now the government has said that if we still need a certain amount from your turnover, from your earnings from your farm, we still need a certain percentage. However, after the protest, the government has said that farmers with a turnover of less than 1 million Kenya shillings, that is 10,000 USD, will be exempted from generating tax invoice. It's called the e-teams. So another tax that was done with was KRA would have been allowed to spy on Kenyans. That is, KRA can access your M-Pesa accounts, your bank account, and all your other accounts. So if you're filing for returns, for example, if I decide to file nil returns, then KRA will know I'm lying because they see the amount of money I receive. That was dropped, and it was proposed that they amend data protection laws to exempt that from happening, because that would have meant that whatever amount of transaction you make, whatever amount of money you receive, the government would have had a look into that, and now you would not be able to file returns lower than the amount of money you make. Apart from that, they also did away with excise duty on imported eggs. Imported eggs were to have an excise duty. They also did away with VAT on banking services. That is, there was supposed to be a 16% VAT on, especially this would have affected me, especially because they were to do a 16% VAT on financial service and foreign exchange transaction. That means if, for example, Keith is sending me money, he's going to be charged a 16% VAT for foreign exchange transactions. So that one was also removed. All this I'm reading are as a result of the protests today. Protest lasted a day, but we've seen those results so far. There was supposed to be an excise duty on M-Pesa transactions. That was also done with. That was it was supposed to be taken to 20% from the current 15%. So those are some of the changes that have been made from today's protests. Are Kenyans now done? No, they are not. Even after all those taxes were removed, they removed about 6 taxes from the finance bill. They say that they are still going to protest until the whole finance bill document has been done away with, because now every Kenyan knows, and this is what is making me happy, is that every Kenyan right now knows that the finance bill was an IMF document. It wasn't a Kenyan document, because even the minister who is in charge of finance could not explain the finance bill in a media house. He could not. He had probably seen it a few hours before Kenyans did. So everybody now knows that this is not our document. It's an IMF document. It's a Bretton Woods document. And that is why they are really against it. And that was the way Nairobi was today. Nothing was going on. And you can tell the fear is gone. Let me share a video of, so that I just want to show you how the fear is gone. The fear is no longer there. Even the fear of the police. They tried arresting a young woman, and the young woman told them that they are not going to arrest her, and they could not arrest her, which is something we have not seen in a long, long time. I don't think I've seen that in Kenya before. It's always, you see the police, you run. But this new generation, because the protests were led in specific, to be specific, they were led by this young Gen Z. The Gen Z, we call them Gen Z. The Generation Z is the one that led the protest. So here's a video that I want you to see. And this woman says something that I love. He said, the moment our fear ends, their power ends also. So this was from today's demonstrations.
You police, you're killing us in our communities, poor communities. Why do you want to arrest me? People power! People's power! People's power! When we lose our fear, they lose their power! When we lose our fear, they lose their power! When we lose our fear, when we lose our...
So she says, when we lose our fear, they lose their power, which is true. And the other interesting part about this, let me share the first part.
I'm not going. I'm not going.
Just cooperate.
I'm not cooperating. I'm not going.
Madam.
Don't touch me.
Okay.
I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not cooperating and I'm not going.
You're right.
Why are you arresting me?
Why do you protest?
Why? Give me a reason. I protest because you're killing us.
Who is killing you?
You police. You're killing us in our communities. Poor communities. communities. Why do you want to arrest me?
And you can see the police had to run away because the people sided with her. And another man was also lecturing the police, asking them if they would pay less tax than he would. He actually told them, "It is you I'm fighting for. You get paid. I earn more money than you do. I earn more money than you do. So I'm fighting for you, brother. You're not going to buy bread at a lower cost because you are a police officer. You're not going to be exempted from taxes because you are a police officer. I actually make more money than you do. I'm not your enemy. We have the same enemy, me and you. So why you are fighting me, I cannot understand." And as I was telling you, the most interesting part about this protest is we've never seen protests like this. I'm not saying we've not seen protests in Kenya. What I mean is we've never seen protests that are not politically instigated. All the protests that we've seen before were led by a certain politician who was fighting another politician. I don't know, an opposition leader saying his votes were stolen, and now, But this time there was no politician involved. It was purely citizen arranged, citizen planned from, no politician involved, just citizens sick and tired of corruption and punitive taxes and economic imperialism in 2024. That was the first thing that was really interesting about today's protest, the fact that they were purely citizen-led. They were purely people getting tired, no government intervention at all. The second one is that the government ignored them at first because they started off online. And as I told you before, as I was starting the show, one of the senior politicians, one of the senior government officials, when this was starting, because it started online about 3-4 days ago, tweeted and said that digital activism is just like wanking. So he told Kenyans they were wankers because all they did was make noise online, but they could not really go to the ground and do anything. So that was what happened. Of course, arrests were made. I say 200 people were arrested from the same. But at least my country is waking up and we can actually have our voices heard. We no longer have that mentality of there's nothing that we can do about it. We now know that there's something we can do about it. And the fact that now Kenyans even know that this document was not a Kenyan document, it was an IMF document, is another thing that is making me happy, because not many people even knew that the financial institutions we so much idolize are sinister. Not many people knew that before, but now people are waking up. People are realizing that the white man we've so much idolized for years, the institutions that we've always trusted our lives with, the WHO, the UN, they are sinister. They never mean anything good to us. And the fact that they tried to hoodwink us by removing a few punitive taxes, which in the first place they had put in there. So removing them does not make you any better because you put them there first deliberately, even though not you really. The ones who gave you the document put it there. So you telling us that you've listened to us now, and as you have removed a few clauses here and there, you knew they were punitive from the word go. Why did you want to implement them? Why did you want to implement them? That was how Occupy Parliament went. The protests were dubbed Occupy Parliament. And a big shout out to Kay Williams, who's with me, who's saying these puppets got to go ridiculous. A tax increase? What's up, bro? So there was just to give you context, Kay Williams, there was a proposed tax increase on everything. They were taxing everything. If I read to you some of the taxes that they had introduced, then, for example, this is just an example. If you own a motor vehicle, if you own a car, you are supposed to pay not less than $1,000 a year for every vehicle that you have, or 2.5% the value of the car. So if you have 3 vehicles, you have 3 motor vehicles, then you're going to pay $3,000 a year for a vehicle that you already bought, that you've already insured, that you've already paid taxes for, that you paid income duty for. That is one. One of the other taxes they had introduced was a 16% tax on sanitary towels, on tampons. In a country that not even everybody can afford a sanitary towel, they had introduced a 16% tax on sanitary towels. So that means the cost of sanitary towels would have gone up by 16%. They had introduced a 16% VAT on bread, meaning bread was to go up by that amount. They had introduced a 16% VAT on cancer treatment. If you sick, you have cancer, before you get treated, the government taxes you for being sick. 16% taxation on cancer treatment. Apart from that, there was another 16% tax on, there was literally a tax on everything. There was a turnover tax on farmers. I mean, after you paid all the other taxes, you are then required to, in addition to that, for whatever amount of money you've made, you're supposed to give a certain amount also. That was also for businesses. If you, from whatever profit you make, apart from all the other taxes that you've paid, including getting licenses for your shop. So the taxes were punitive, and to say the least, they were sinister. There were taxes that were meant to make sure that Kenya is poor, it goes down poorer, because the other policy that they had in the finance bill was the government was going to suspend civil hiring for 1 year. That means the government was not going to employ anyone for the next 1 year. And you wonder what is going to happen to all the graduates, what is going to happen to everybody who's gonna in a country battling unemployment. Shouldn't the government be looking to hire more people, to recruit more people, so that it can deal with the high unemployment rate? But they had decided that they were not going to hire anybody anymore. So those were some of the ridiculous clauses. There are so many of them. There was another eco tax that was on anything that is on a plastic, anything that is packaged in the packaging is not eco-friendly. You're getting taxed for that. For example, you buy a soda, it is in a plastic container, it is taxed. You buy edible oil, it's in a plastic container, you get taxed. Anything non-eco-friendly was also going to get taxed. I mean, if they are willing to add tax on sanitary pads, then I don't know what else they can't add taxes on. And for the 200 people that were arrested, we also had a group of Kenyan lawyers that was on the standby for the same. So all those that were arrested, we had lawyers in every police station in Nairobi trying to secure their release. I don't know whether they have been released yet as of now, but I know there was a group of lawyers in every contributing in whichever way they would be able to contribute. And Kay Williams is asking, are you going out there to protest with the people? I wasn't there today because I'm having my exams, but I paid fare. I paid transport for two of my friends to go protest. They did not have transport, so I paid for their transport so that they can just go and protest with the people. And the next one that is gonna come, if it's gonna be tomorrow, if I don't have school, I'm going there because I'm also tired of this punitive regime, policies, and a system that does not work. You walk around and you see how much people are suffering already. At the moment, people are really suffering already. There's no employment. Everything has gone up. Everything has gone up apart from salaries and opportunities. And you see how people are suffering already, and you see them wanting to amplify the suffering more. Instead of them working on reducing how people are suffering, they are working on almost on increasing the suffering, because I couldn't afford bread today. You've added tax on it. How am I going to afford it now? And the fact that the media houses we have are also enablers to some of these things, because, for example, in the morning, they were the first to broadcast that the protests have been outlawed, because the police commander, Nairobi police commander, woke up to outlaw the protest. So they were the first one to broadcast the same. And that led to fear among the people, because now the protests have been outlawed. Is it still going to continue? But people still went. and you can tell the spirit is there. And what they call the digital activism, that they called wanking, ended up being translated from simple Twitter hashtags to people in the streets actually amplifying their voices. And what they had, yes, they were. Ruto had to convene an emergency meeting at State House. And it was during the emergency meeting that they they never thought it would get to this. And as it was during the emergency meeting that they did away with a few of those clauses in a bid to lie to the people, to make the people think that they were actually being listened to. But people did not buy that. That's the interesting part. And I love this video, and I'm going to share it again because it shows that change is indeed coming. You just need to open your eyes and see. Not just in Kenya. Nigerians were in the streets last week, were they not? Senegalese people in the streets also protesting, and they forced their president out before the new one was elected, who's also a puppet. Look at Burkina Faso, look at Mali, look at Botswana, look at, people can actually now voice up, especially the younger generation. They can actually, unlike the older generation which used to fear everything, which lived on their knees, because to be honest, our parents lived on their knees. They idolized the leaders. They thought the leaders were gods. And even today, we heard some of them having the same talk, talking about, you don't joke with the. And I saw that conversation, and one of the organizers of the protest was telling them, just because you feared the former president does not mean we are gonna fear the current one. We are not you. And that did make me happy. And a big shout out to General Mosquito, who's with me. And Kay Williams is asking me what I'm studying in school. I'm studying journalism and communication. I'm gonna be graduating later this year. So, and Kay Williams goes on to say, I feel bad for the people. That is pure madness. The increase in taxes is pure madness. But it's not even them. They're just enablers. They're just puppets who are handed down the documents. Because I told you the finance. So this one falls under the Ministry of Treasury. We have a PS. A PS is almost an assistant to the minister. He was on a national TV, and he was being asked to explain the increase in taxes. The specific question was on the motor vehicle tax, where I told you, if you own a vehicle in Kenya, you are to pay $1,000 or 2.5% of the value of the car every year. That is, you have 3 vehicles, General Mosquito. If you have 3 cars, you're paying $3,000 a year, or 2.5% the value of each car, whichever is more. So he was asked, why are you taxing the car when I already paid tax for the car? When I was importing it, I paid import duty on it. I paid tax when it was being inspected on my inspection documents. I paid tax when I was insuring it. I paid tax on its fuel. There is the fuel levy on the fuel. You did away with the subsidies, so you're not even helping me fuel my car anymore. I'm shouldering the burden, the whole burden for the fuel alone. So why isn't that double, triple taxation? And he could not explain that. And people thought he was dumb, but he really is not dumb. He's just as clueless as I am. I was saying he probably got the document 2 days before I did. He read the document maybe 2 days before me, because it's not a document that the government came up with. It's a foreign punitive document by the Bretton Woods, directed to African economy, different African economies, because it's the same document. The same document we have in Kenya is almost a replica of the document that is there in Nigeria. Nigerians are going through the same. That is why they were protesting too. The cost of everything has gone up in Nigeria, apart from wages. And now the same salary that you had, you can't even pay for your rent, you can't buy food. You look at some of the clauses in the Kenyan finance bill and in the Nigerian finance bill, similar. 1, do away with fuel subsidies. 2, the government stops recruiting people, hiring anybody. 3, I don't know, fuel levy. 4, it's a similar replica document. You can tell they were authored by the same person, the same as the economic policies that we saw in Ghana, similar documents. So it's a whole plan. It's a whole plan that is aimed, sinister plan aimed at African economies. Not that they have not always done this, but it's how shameless they are and how they think that the way they've always oppressed us over the years since the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, 2000s, they're still going to continue doing that, and we're still going to keep quiet and watch. It's not going to be the same. You can tell it's not going to be the same. People can now actually see through the lies. For example, people are having a conversation on the vaccinations, on the, we never used to have conversations that we're having at the moment. 10 years ago, nobody in Kenya knew that the IMF was a sinister organization. But right now, people know, people are starting to know. 10 years ago, people in Mali thought that the French were trying to help them. But look at them now, kicking them out. So even the lies, it reaches a point. They say you can fool certain people sometimes, but you can't fool everyone all the time. So they have fooled our grandfathers. Really, they started with our grandfathers. They fooled our fathers. They're not gonna fool us, and even if they do, we won't buy the lies as our fathers did. That is why you look at all the revolutions in Africa; they are being led by people younger than 40 years, because the others they have been sold so deep into the lies, into the indoctrination, into the brainwashing, that they can't see black and white anymore. And even in today's protest, would not see anybody of
Unless
that age limit. If you look at the protest, for example, of this lady that I shared, you saw it's a very young woman. Let me reshare the video because it's making me so happy watching such a video.
People power! People's power! People's power! When we lose our fear, they lose their power! When we lose our fear, they lose their power! When we lose our fear,
She said, when we lose our fear, they lose their power.
that's right. I told you
She
they're
said
going
this.
to deal with
She
it.
said,
Lose your
she said
fear.
this after, and she said this after wrestling with at least 3-4 police officers.
I'm not going. I'm not cooperating. I'm not going.
No, because
Don't touch me.
she didn't do nothing illegal.
I'm not
Exactly.
going.
She didn't do nothing illegal.
going.
So we don't live in a democracy. It's all been
I'm not
exposed now. I
cooperating
can
and I'm
see
not.
it. You don't live in a
Why are
democracy.
you
It's all
arresting
been
me?
exposed. Exactly.
Well,
She
give
did
me a
that.
reason.
Exactly. No
Protest because
reason.
you're killing us.
Yep. And the protests were peaceful. There was not even
Exactly.
destruction of. And it is
And
that
that's all
we say
right.
we live in a democracy, but it's not really a democracy when it's like this. And that was why that other Kenyan was lecturing the police, telling them, I'm fighting for you. You poorer than me, but you're beating me up. I can
Mm-hmm.
afford bread. Even if they raise the cost of bread, I can afford it. You can't. It's you I'm fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
But they do not understand that, because
They're
they are the
stupid
biggest enablers of
because
the
they're stupid.
injustices that we see in Africa.
Yeah, that's
But
why they were installed. That's why they put there.
nobody believed, the leaders underestimated this. They didn't think it was gonna work, because we've never seen a protest that is not organized by a politician. It was the
Yeah,
first time.
because it's real, Demore. You probably, what you had those other time was called controlled opposition. It's fake. It's phony. This is real. That's why the impact is so felt, because this is real, organized on the ground. It's real.
Yep, so that was all to do with the Occupy Parliament protest. It was called Occupy Parliament. I don't know
Hmm.
what next. Tomorrow is when the parliament is going to have the second reading of the finance bill. They did away with a few clauses here and there, but it's still going to be read tomorrow before the
See if
parliament,
you,
the second reading.
see if you can play that video I sent you, Demore, on your WhatsApp. The last video I sent you.
On
See if
WhatsApp.
Joe can show how to put it. Yeah, see if Joe can show how to put it up there, because he's understanding exactly. It's not a free country. Who actually runs it? The scam is over. Africans are starting to know the truth. So, oh, it's already okay.
Now let
Let me get a
me download one. Na TikTok hapa. All right, let me share the same in a minute. Ngoja nisikize. Yeah, I can be able to share it. Let me share it in a minute.
take your time.
Now, when you look at this finance bill, it is very punitive. Rumor has it, and these are sentiments being said by even ministers, that today our entire economy, including the finance bill proposal and our budgets, are drafted by IMF and World Bank. So is the country at hostage? These are the discussions we need to have. Because you cannot tell me we are reaching a level where the finance bill proposes inclusion of levies on raw materials. You see, a GDP of a country is grown by value addition to products over
And we know owns the IMF and the World Bank, the small hat.
Kenya today.
So this is what you see is happening, and this is what you see what's happening in South Africa. I told you that, and now I know the small hats have completely stole those elections. And I knew they were because this is them trying to recolonize African story. The youth are waking up. This is dangerous. He's gonna call them the globalists, not the globalists. Everybody's scared to say their real name. You see them say the real name, you end up shadow banned like us. Go ahead, Demar.
In Kenya today, we are number 5 from number 1. Rwanda is leading number 1 with a GDP of 6.2%. Number 2 is Tanzania with Tanzania. Number 2 is Uganda with 5.5%, tying with South Sudan at 5.5%. Tanzania is number 4 at 5.2%. Kenya, we are at 5.0, 5.1. So where did we go wrong? Most of the businesses in this country are shutting down every day. When you look at the private sector, the other day, the last conference they had last week, they said, we are telling you, we are open enough, and we are saying these punitive taxes you're bringing, motor vehicle taxes, eco tax, and all this, you're crashing down production in this country, and will not have an option than to leave the economical space of Kenya. So to me, from where I sit, this is a bigger global agenda by the globalists who are controlling this country.
Yes, exactly. Not the
Because
globalists.
you cannot tell me.
You know who, exactly. Not the globalists.
Look at our expenditure. In every 100 shillings the government makes, every 100 shillings the government of Kenya makes, today, 78 to 80 shillings goes to payment of debts.
Exactly.
We are left with only 20 shillings. We've not put 35 shillings for the county. We've not put 30 shillings for OPEC. We've not put another 50 shillings for remuneration and salaries. So we are living in debt. We've become a begging country. And if you go out here, every Kenyan is begging.
And that's on purpose.
Everyone is
You're
begging.
broke.
If you're not begging for money, you're begging to be listened. You're even begging to be loved. That is Kenya for you today. So we are in a crisis, and we need to discuss these issues from a sober point of view.
And after the more plays it, I'm having the more look up something. I'm having to more look up something. See, you're broke. You're being impoverished by people that don't live in your country, that are stealing from behind the scenes. And most Africans don't understand how the world works, who's running it, and what's the agenda. It's to make you a slave while they get rich, help their families off your back. You stay impoverished. Go, is that the end? You go, Demore. I don't know if that's in or not.
We need to know, is our country held hostage so that we find ways of getting ourselves out of this
Yeah.
hole?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. You know,
Yep.
you're not held hostage. You were put hostage when you're supposed to have independence with Jomo in there. This was set up through Jomo and the other puppets in Africa. Okay, you're not held hostage.
All
You were set up.
leaders,
Go ahead.
all the
Go
leaders
ahead,
that were
Demore.
airlifted before independence and taken to,
Yeah.
you know,
Exactly.
foreign countries. Although some of
Mhm.
them really were airlifted, but they came back and did the right thing. There are so many leaders who were airlifted by the whites, taken to Britain, taken to the UK, taken to Lisbon, and they were
Mhm.
indoctrinated. But when they came back to their countries, they did what was right. I can name a few, such as
Yeah.
um, such
Like
as
Julius Nyerere
Tomboya,
down in
yeah,
down in Tanzania.
yeah, Tomboya in Kenya also. Nyerere,
Yeah.
although Nyerere was real, is not really the best example to give because he
He's not a
was
great example. He was scared about uniting Africa because he thought there was a scam to take it back over. But he learned eventually that's what he should have did. So he is a
yeah,
good
but
example
there,
because he didn't steal. He stayed impoverished, trying to build the country as much as he can, and he also helped the other Africans the more he gets free. Go ahead.
so there were actually leaders who they took there, indoctrinated. The other one is Pio Gamapinto. If you know, if you remember Pio Gamapinto, who was working with Malcolm X, he was a Kenyan
Hmm.
and although we don't hear about him as much, he was.
Of course not, because he's a real thing. The more you're not gonna hear about the real thing. You're not gonna. I'm not gonna teach you in school how to get free. I'm not gonna teach you about the real thing, the real Kenyan. I'm gonna teach you
The
about
other one,
Jomo.
the other one was the South African. There's a South African called Pixley Kaisa Seme. He started ANC in 1920.
Okay,
The original
okay.
ANC that used to fight for black people.
Yeah, the
He,
original, not the shit you got
yeah,
today.
yep. You should check him out. He was a great man who was taken out there, indoctrinated, came back to Africa and fought for Africanism. He was murdered,
Yeah,
of course.
I don't know how you can get indoctrinated, Demore. You can't nobody tell you nothing that goes against the people. I don't think anybody was indoctrinated. I think they were willing puppets. They wanted to have money and prestige the more. So I don't think they were indoctrinated. I think they were willing puppets. You're willing to go against your people, have your people in poverty, as long as you got
Mhm.
a little bit of something. So I don't believe in that indoctrination shit.
Yep.
But I want you first
They
up,
were, yeah,
Demore.
I think they were just,
Put this
I think
up.
they were just
Put this up, sis.
greedy. Mhm.
Yeah, opportunists, greedy opportunists. Exactly.
And
So not
that the biggest problem, the biggest thing, the biggest mistake that we did was trust them because they were black. We thought they were our brothers and we
exactly.
trusted them. And
Of
for
course,
example, the Mau
Demore,
Mau easily,
but you weren't
Mau
smart enough
easily
yet.
handed over to Jomo. They handed over to Jomo easily because they knew the white man is
They didn't really
gone. These
hand it
were
off.
right here.
They didn't really hand it over to him. Remember the Mama? I think the Mama
They
were
trusted.
suppressed with Jomo. They were
Mhm.
suppressed because they said he wasn't a Mama. They said they tried to be loud, but they were suppressed because once they got. Remember, Jomo had all the British apparatus of control. So they still control the country. They just put them up in there. So they still own all the media and all the things that prop Jomo up. Well, the Mama was saying, this dude was no Mama. He fought against us. This bastard is not one of us. They didn't have the microphone, the more so the whole people could hear. And the people what? Coming out of poverty and ignorance. They just happy that they just think the white man is gone. Yeah, you happy. Yeah, you know what the fuck is going on. You don't know that you're being instead again yet. The more you're not smart enough. You just, yay, God damn it, we finally got Kenya back from this white man. Yay! You don't know that it's all a scam yet. You're not smart enough yet, sadly enough. I want you
And you have to
look this
give
up
it to
tomorrow.
them. You have to give it
Yeah,
to them
yeah, go ahead.
for their planning. They always plan before. For example, in
Of
as I checked
course.
that out. For example, in Kenya, they knew Kenya got independence in 1963, but it had its first airlift in 1950. So they had already prepared for 1963
Of
and
course.
1959. That
Well,
was when the
listen,
tomboy,
they,
the like
they knew
taken.
tomorrow.
Yep.
They knew they didn't have the numbers to physically keep Africans because a lot of them had died in World War II. So physically, they could not keep you up close and personal like that. They said, well, let's start devising our scheme to control them mentally and put puppets up, give them money, and they'll do our bidding because they'll be the big man in the area. So you're right. They knew they couldn't win no more against you militarily. The more like boots on the ground, they didn't have enough of them. There's too many Africans. So they devised
And
another way. You got Bretton Woods and banking
plan
scams. Go
was
ahead.
plan was so simple. We're gonna leave, but we're gonna leave your people who work for us. So it's not
Yeah.
like we're leaving. We're leaving, but we're not
And,
leaving.
yeah, and we're going to keep our educational system intact. If you worshiping us and lies, that's going to perpetuate within the future. How about you see none of these puppets ever change the educational system? The more the system lied, and they never made it free. Why is all the school fees in Africa? You pay taxes. There should be no school fees. Only in Africa you paying these goofy school fees. That's on purpose to make sure more people who live and hand them out can't even afford to get the education, the background education that's being given. It's to keep you living hand to mouth, More. It's a scam. First thing you would have did when if you got freedom, oh, this educational system's the first thing gotta go. I can't teach my babies none of this bullshit that I learned. I gotta change that immediately, Demore. That's your first course of business. And your second, I gotta get control of all media in all of it. The print media, from the magazines to the newspaper and to the broadcast media. All of it must reflect African people. All of it. That's what you got to do. That's what you would have did. They didn't do none of that because the white man told them, no, you don't touch none of that. That's how you're going to keep control. We're going to keep you in power, moron. That's how we're going to keep you there.
And as we come,
Now, what you look this up tomorrow real quick. Boy, you come there and look this up. Look this up real quick. Say Thomas Jefferson said, is what you know, IMF and all these places, central banks. Say Thomas Jefferson said, if we allow a central bank in America, which I already told you what you got now, Federal Reserve Bank, that owned by the Americans, say Thomas Jefferson said, if we allow a central bank in America, our children will be impoverished and homeless in the country that we conquered. So our children will wake up homeless and impoverished in the country we conquered if we allow a central bank. See, that's what the IMF, that's what it is. The central banks are made to impoverish people. See it? Read it for me.
let me read the exact quote.
Yeah,
So it
I'm
goes,
paraphrasing.
yeah, it's by Thomas Edison. So it goes, it's a long quotation. It goes, if the American people ever allow private banks to control the
Exactly.
issue of their currency, first by
That's part,
inflation, then by
exactly. I want the more to understand is why you got inflation. These private banks, the more create inflation that you got in African America. Told you the central bank in America, we don't own it. It's a private bank owned by these small hats. IMF, World Bank are private banks owned by the small hats. So understand, they create inflation, they create all these shits to steal and rob from people. But go ahead.
the banks, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow around them will deprive the people of all property until their children will wake up homeless on the continents their fathers conquered. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberty than standing armies.
Yeah, that's been proven to be true. Right.
That issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. Yep. Wow.
And
Never
that's
heard
what
of this quotation.
And you need, that's why I sent it to you. So you need to know it. That's what's happening with Kenya right now. So I make you understand
The fact
some of that part. Go ahead.
that Thomas Edison believed that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies.
Everybody knows that, Demore. That's a fact. Yeah, this is real. Why you never taught none of this with education?
I was
These are
busy
private.
studying the Bible.
These are.
No time for that.
Oh God, that was funny. Yeah, these are privately owned banks, Demore, by private. They're fucking scams, man. They're criminal organizations to rob the people of their wealth and give it up to the people that don't do shit. That's what you got going on in Kenya right now. That's why they want to privatize. But I told you, don't never accept any privatization, Demore. That's the banker scam. They steal everything that belongs to you as a people.
Under proxies. They're gonna buy them, the companies under Kenyan names, and yep, and
Yeah.
Kay Williams is going back and throwing digs at Lizzie. Shmani, that was not me, that was Kay Williams on the comment. So as we come to the end, that was what was happening today with protests all over Kenya due to plans to increase taxes. I'm gonna be telling you what is going to happen tomorrow when the finance bill will be taken to parliament for first reading. But enjoy the rest of your day, family. Much love.
What you seen happen, family, with the IMF coming to Kenya, and that's what they're doing, making sure the Kenyans stay impoverished on their own land. Understand what this is? This is wickedness. Shout out to the Kenyans and starting to understand. This is white supremacy. These are the fake private banking scams designed to keep them impoverished. All these taxes and all that money doesn't go to Kenya. That's going up to the white people, as Thomas Jefferson told you, to make them rich and wealthy off your back. So much love, family. Say what you're busy reading the Bible. That was funny.